really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic. Yes, like Andrew had mentioned, I'm the financial wellness manager over at Visions. So really we do the financial education pieces, financial counseling. So people come to my teams when they want help building a budget or rebuilding credit, building credit from scratch, building a budget from scratch, anything really like that. We always assist with. So love doing things like this. Love being here. So thanks so much for having me.
Matt, since we're talking about Visions, if somebody wanted to work with you, would they just need a Visions account? Is there a fee to work with the financial wellness counselors at Visions?
For my team, no, there, you don't need to be a member. You don't need to have an account, anything like that. You would just reach out to us. Really, the beautiful part about my team and my job is it's our job to get the information out there so community members are making the most well-informed decisions for themselves. Keeping that mindset of everybody does everything differently. So whether that's learning, budgeting, where they prefer to do business, everything's different. So meeting everybody there and knowing that, I like to say Visions is a great fit for everybody, but if it's not the best fit for you, we still want you out there making the most informed decisions for you, because at the end of the day, when we're talking, if we're going to be talking about personal finance, it's right in the name. It's personalized, it's individualized. So that varies from person to person. So my big goal is just getting everybody to where they can make the most well-informed decisions for themselves.
That's awesome. Thank you. I learned something new today too. That's wonderful.
But yeah, totally free. Don't need to be a member. It would just be a matter of reaching out to us.
Awesome. Well, just for those of you who aren't familiar, the Cash Coalition is the group of organizations on this slide: the Syracuse Financial Empowerment Center, United Way, the City of Syracuse, Cooperative Federal. There's a lot of organizations that participate. Peace plays a major role, Fidelis Care, obviously NIDA, and SU, UMIA. Cash stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope. And so we work together to really promote financial empowerment, financial wellness, and increasing family wealth here in our community. A big part of our program is the Vita Tax program. In the spring, it's free tax service. We also work with organizations like the Financial Empowerment Center, Visions, and Cooperative Federal to give people direct financial counseling. And community education, which is part of our Money Talk series. So thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you. So today, doing a little budget talk, and budgeting is one of my favorite things to talk about because I've yet to find a kind of comparison that I like better. But if we think about our personal finances, like building a house, budgeting truly is a foundation. Right? That's what you can really build everything off of. If you want to talk about retiring, if you want to talk about building credit, if you want to talk about just living a life that you want to live, it starts with budgeting, because budgeting truly does get you a good look at where you are currently, and it gives you a pathway to where you want to be. And the goal is to get that consistent budget, so it's either balanced or you have a surplus at the end of the month, or however long you want to budget. But one thing that I have noticed throughout my time doing this is budgeting at the end of the day gets a bad rap. People think about budgeting as something that is really involved, very, very tedious work, or a lot of people think you need some kind of specialized knowledge to really go into it. So, I talk to people and let's set up a budget. Well, I don't really know accounting, things like that. In that case, you really want to boil it down to what it truly is, and we'll talk further about what that looks like. But budgeting at its core is your income, or however much you're allowing yourself to spend, minus your expenses. So how much are you spending? And then from there you have your balance, and that's what you can make a lot of the decisions off of. So at the end of the day, you want to think, why do I need a budget? I used to work in branch at a different institution, and I would have people come in, and I would still kind of have those same driving talks of, hey, budget. And they say, yeah, well, I checked my account and it seems to be going up, so why would I need that? I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. And it's both ways. Yeah, you can see yourself gaining more and more money, and that's fantastic, but you want to know how you can optimize it. So people, again, that's where budgeting gets that bad rap of, it's looking for things you're doing wrong, things I need to cut, because you always hear about, I need to cut this from the budget, cut that from the budget. Really, it's a matter of optimizing what you're already doing well also. So if you see yourself, you're just checking your account balance and that's going up and up and up, that's great. But if you're not having kind of a light shed on your spending habits, what your saving habits are, and what you're doing well, you're not going to be able to magnify what you're already doing well. And that's a really big piece of budgeting. As you can, that's the final thing that I end with on this slide. It's that final point of highlights area where you're doing well. So yeah, there are aspects of cutting things out, but it's not meant to be super rigid. It's meant to be flexible enough for you to, again, you'll hear me say this over and over, it's living the life that you want to live. So when we go through what the expense sheets might look like, there are ways that I always suggest organizing it out. And, I've been doing this long enough to where I can give my favorite budget sheet to 10 different people. And the next week, 6 of them come back and tell me, there's no way I can ever use this. I can't stand it. So again, it's super personalized, but as we look at how we organize budgets, it comes down to living that life that you want to live. And people get caught up in that budget mode of, I need to cut everything that's not necessary, and I need to optimize how much I'm saving. And that's great. I'm not going to complain about somebody wanting to be a more efficient saver. What I am going to complain about is living so structured to that piece of paper, that budget sheet, that you are cutting out things that you genuinely enjoy. For me, we'll get back into this. It happens to be coffee in the morning. So that's something that I can't allow myself to cut, because then my quality of life goes down, and it's something that I just need to work into my budget. So keeping a budget is really great. And again, it's not as in-depth or complicated, especially getting started, as people might think. So creating a budget, it really can be a simple venture. One thing that I always like to tell people to do is grab a notebook. That's one of the easiest starting points to go with. You can grab a 99-cent notebook from a gas station if you want, and on that left side of the paper, put all your income or whatever money you're willing to spend. So you can call it allowance, you can call it allowable spending money, you can call it income, but that's going to go right there on that left side. And then if we have our notebook open on the right side, that's where all the expenses, that's where all the spending is going to go. So at the end of the day, it's really just having it right there in front of your face. So this side is going to be your income or your allowable spending money. This is going to be your expenses or what you're actually spending. And then from there, you're going to total them up, and that's going to be the balance. So starting on a budget can be as easy as that. And one thing that I've seen work is, and I do ask a lot of my new clients or clients to do this every once in a while, is take a week, 2 weeks, even a month, depending on your time frame of when you want to get up and running with a budget, and don't even think about your budget. Go live your life like normal. The only thing that I ask is anytime you spend any money, grab a receipt and put that away somewhere safe, somewhere it's going to be. And then at the end of that week, 2 weeks, or month, grab all those receipts and then list them out. Because if you go into it thinking, I'm going to start a budget, this and that, you're going to start having that in your mind. It's going to impact your day-to-day spending. What I'm really interested in is, what are your true spending habits? And that's a big thing to keep in mind when we're looking at budgeting, because at the end of the day, it's on what you put down on that sheet. So a budget's really only going to be as impactful or effective as you are honest. So it's easy for people to come in and fudge the numbers when they come and talk to me and say, well, your budget looks good. What do you need help with now? And they say, well, it's just not working out. Well, then I think we need to take a more honest look at what some of these numbers are. So
this isn't the time to kid yourself, right? You need to be really honest. Yeah.
Exactly. It's going to work much better the more honest that you can possibly be. So this is really an internal sheet. And then if you come to talk to somebody like myself or somebody on my team, those are completely confidential counseling sessions. So it's not a sheet to say, look how good I'm doing. It's a sheet to say, this is what my situation looks like. How can I optimize it? How can I make it better for myself and live the life that I want to live? So creating a budget can be very simple. This is an example of what a budget sheet might look like. On here, you'll see gross and net. That's really just to compare and really send the message home. It's always, always, always really important to use that net income. If you're going off income, if you're going off just allowable spending, that's just going to be there. But net income is really important. That's that income after taxes. And again, this is where that honest numbers come into play. We're thinking about money in hand. How much money do we actually have? Gross number is a really important number to know for things like tax purposes, things like that. But when we're talking on a budget, if we were to use that gross income, we're going to inflate how much money we actually have in hand. So income, generally, it's a little bit easier to track. You have your pay stubs, or you know exactly how much money you have to spend. Generally, people don't have more that normally falls within 0 to 5 streams of income. So they're pretty simple to track. So finding a system that works for you, this is just a very simple version of what a tracking sheet might look like. And then we move into expenses. And that is what I talked about, kind of just figuring out how you're going to organize it that's going to work well for you. So I always suggest, at least to start, to organize it, breaking it up by the 3 different kinds. So up on the top of the sheet, I always say, let's put our fixed expenses. So those are things that we know they're going to come month over month over month. We know exactly how much they're going to be. So your mortgage, your rent, car payment, this is how much I'm going to pay every single month on this. There's really not much wiggle room. And these are going to also be things like needs that you really need to pay. So that's right up top. Then below, I always say, let's put our flexible. We know they're going to be there. They're also needs. We need to pay them, but we're not 100% sure what that number is going to be. We can ballpark it pretty well, but we're not 100% sure what it's going to be, and there's some wiggle room there. So cable, groceries, gas, other utilities, those go right in that flexible area. And then at the bottom, we put our what's called discretionary expenses. So those are entertainment. Those are things that don't need to be there, but again, they're living the life that you want to live. So those are at the bottom. Those, if we do come into a point where we need to adjust it, we can make some adjustments there. So the reason that I break them down by fixed up top, flexible in the middle, discretionary at the bottom is, let's say I'm giving myself $1,000 to spend in a month, and then I map out all of my expenses and it comes out to $1,200. Now I'm negative $200. I need to make some adjustments here and there. If I were to just list out all of my expenses randomly on a sheet, now I literally have to go line by line. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? If you map them out where fixed up top, flexible in the middle, discretionary at the bottom, you can run all the way up the list, and it's a little bit easier to make those adjustments. So, for me, I'm probably not going to cut coffee in the morning. Maybe I can cut here and there and make those adjustments. But maybe I can cut out my gym membership for a month. Maybe I can say, I'm not going to go out to dinner as much. So I can cut those things right out. I don't want to cut all of them because, again, I want to live the life that I want to live. But I know that, for the time being, I do need to make some cuts. Then we move up to flexible. And that's where they're still needed. We still need to pay them, but there's definitely some wiggle room there. So maybe I can look for coupons for groceries. Maybe I can take the bus, or maybe I can bike more and use less gas. Maybe I can cut cable for a month. But there's some wiggle room there. Or maybe I can adjust the temperature in my house or apartment, pay a little bit less on electricity or other utilities. So there's that wiggle room. And then we get up to fixed, and there's really not any wiggle room that we can make there. So those are just cemented right there. And then we make the adjustments where we need to there. So mapping it out like this is really just a way to help in the case that you do need to make certain adjustments or reassess your budget. And again, this is a very simple example of what this might look like. So we have our rent and loans up at the top. The utilities and groceries, they're more flexible. Gym is discretionary. And then we always put savings there, because savings is something that we want to budget for as well. And again, this isn't me saying this is how you should map out your budget. This is me saying, this is an example. And at the end of the day, Google's going to be your best friend. Because again, I can give you my favorite sheets, but if you Google budget template, you're going to find thousands of them. and you're going to be able to find the one that really fits your eye the best. But again, when we're looking at what a budget truly is, and when we say it gets a bad rap, as you can see, it really doesn't have to be that involved. We can start here and we can say, all right, what's the income? Subtract the expenses. That's the bottom line. And this is where I can make decisions. This is where I can, put some money towards retirement. If we can get a consistent balance at the end of the month, we can pay off some bills a little bit faster. We can build an emergency savings account. We can make those decisions off of that bottom line. But at the end of the day, this is what a budget truly looks like. And it's something where, again, as I said, being the foundation, you can really, really build something off of that. So budgeting is one of the most important first steps. And I say this all the time too. It's just like everything else in life. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And as things get more complex and complicated, you're going to be able to roll with that more. So if you start off, it might be a little shaky, and that's where you can come talk to anybody at your financial institution. You can come talk to my team, and they're always happy to help you along the way of building out that budget and getting more consistent. And then as you continually do that, you're going to get better at it, and you're going to be able to start running with that yourself and really grow your knowledge base of that. And as things come up, it just makes it so much more smooth to run through some of those roadblocks that you might see. So that's really the high level overview of budgeting, but it's a really nice place to start. You can go grab a notebook, put the sheets right there. You'll be able to see what your financial situation looks like. If you organize it in a way that works for you, you're going to be able to really optimize what you're doing well. You're going to know where the changes you need to make are. And that's a really nice place to start with budgeting. We don't want people to find some elaborate Excel sheet. If you like Excel, that's great. Some of the best budgeting sheets I've ever seen are Excel, but jumping into a very detailed Excel sheet is a little bit daunting. So start where you're comfortable. And that's really the point of personal finance is making those steps that are going to work for you. And as long as you're making those small steps in the right direction, that makes me happy. So, it's really about your personal finance journey and how you can get to where you want to be in the way that works best for you. So if anybody has any questions about budgeting, anything like that overall, that's what I'm here for. Love questions. If not, you can always reach out to me. Andrew, you can always feel free to share my information. If anybody has any follow-up questions, I'm always happy to field questions.
Absolutely. I love, oh, go ahead, Nicole.
One of our residents has a question.
Do you have a financial program that I can call and get help from? That would be.
Yes, he does. A financial program where you can sit down with someone. So
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and Nicole, I'll email you Matt, do you want to just put your contact info in the chat
Works
while
perfectly.
we're talking? And then we have a slide at the end with the Financial Empowerment Center information, which also does free counseling. So you could go to either Visions, you could go to the Syracuse Empowerment Center. If you have your own bank, we tend to talk a lot about credit unions because they have a lot of these services. So you can email Matt directly at mkisloski@Visions FCU. Is it a .org?
.org, yes.
.org. Yeah. And I think to sit down one-on-one with somebody is a great idea. I do it. I encourage all the people in my life to do it. I think I say this every single time we have one of these talks. I think talking about your own personal money is really emotional. And I think doing it with friends and family sometimes works, but sometimes it's better to do it with someone who's not friends and family. And I think it's really good to sit down with someone who's not trying to sell you anything. And that is one of the reasons why we like to promote organizations like Visions, like Cooperative, like the Financial Empowerment Center. Matt is not going to try and sell you some kind of life insurance policy. He's not going to try and sell you a credit card. And to sit down with someone who can just listen to you dispassionately And one of the things I always reflect on is I went through a period of time in my life where I had all sorts of credit card debt, and I was so ashamed of it. Like I was really ashamed of it. And like, I didn't want to talk about it. When I did talk about it with people, they were judgy. And going to someone here, you know, especially if you're taking on a new chapter in your life and you're doing some things differently, what a great time to say, you know, this is where I'm working. And you know, Matt talked about the fixed expenses, the variable expenses, and then like discretionary. At a certain point, when you get to those fixed expenses, if you're still struggling, well, then there's some other questions to ask, right? Like if you know, we know rent has gone up for everybody. We know grocery costs are going up and gas is going up. This is a time where it's really important to look at that budget. And for me, having a written budget gives me control. And especially, I don't share it with people. Nobody gets to see my budget unless I want to share it with them, but it gives me control. And, you know, when my stepdaughter went and got her first job, she'd never made a budget. And I was like, no, you and I were going to sit down, we're going to do this. And she hasn't shown it to me since, but she lives by it. And it's a great way to say, I think people are like, oh, I don't want a budget, it feels horrible. But no, it's you saying, wow, this is my money and this is what I'm doing with it. I'm putting a roof over my head. I'm taking care of my family. I'm getting to work. I'm doing fun things. I'm saving. And so I like to see a budget as a fun tool. I'm kind of a nerd. I'm sure all of my friends are like rolling their eyes right now. But I don't think a budget has to be onerous, but definitely doing it with somebody else is a good idea. Other questions?
I have one. One of the things many of our residents face, not all of them, is they come in with a fair amount of debt, and we didn't talk about where debt would fit in on those in those categories. And I wondered, Matt, like if you just were broadly talking to someone, you know, just starting budgeting and they had to work debt in there, what would you say?
Yeah, so one of the best things that you can do as far as that, and that's a little bit where I'll zip back. So we put the loan up here. So with certain debt, that can also be debt as well. So depending on, you know, what kind of debt, where the debt is along its journey, that can really go into different areas. I always toss it into the fixed area, because generally there's going to be an agreed upon amount that's being paid, or it's a specific loan payment, and taking a look at options. So one of the big ones more and more recently are those student loans, and people not really understand, hey, there are different options for student loans. And a lot of times, depending on the type of debt or what debt there is, there are options for either different minimum payment types or you know, different payback structures. With that, you want to look at what's going to work best for you, and sometimes that is find the lowest minimum payment you can and then work your budget out so you know that those payments are being made. And that goes into a kind of different credit talk, where if Andrea will have me back, I'm sure we'd love to talk about credit at some point, finding out what's going to make the most impact there. And then also, once you have that in the system, as far as, you know, these things are covered, or if you want to snowball your debt, and we can talk a little bit more about what that looks like. From there, now that the budget's set, what is the balance if we can get a positive balance left over? And then we can start look at what these principal payments look like. So the principal is paying down what's actually being owed on the loan, so without that interest accruing. So if we can make those minimum payments and then find some wiggle room with the balance or the bottom line or a budget, can we make some principal only payments and really knock out more of that debt? So it's really starting out, it's kind of that bottom up structure of where can I be covered and be good with some of those minimum payments. And then as I get more comfortable and more efficient budgeting, then how can I really make some leaps and bounds as far as knocking this debt out?
Mm-hmm. And Matt, we would love to have you come back and talk about reducing debt. And I think, again, that's one of those things where you just get in over your head and you don't, you want to just not look at it and not deal with it. But the best way is to, first of all, stay on top of your payments, minimum payments, and work with someone to get a structure so you can make those minimum payments, and then get to a point where you can make more than the minimum payments. I think for me personally, and this isn't true for everybody, I would keep track each month how much I'd owe and how much my payments really knocked off. Because for me to look at it every month and say, oh, look at that, I used to owe this amount of money, and over so many months I've gotten it down to here. For me, that gave me a sense of accomplishment. And it helped me feel like I had a handle on things. But especially if you have more than one line of debt, it can be complicated and feel like a lot. So yeah, Nicole, we will definitely cover that topic and soon.
Definitely. And one of the things too that I've seen, and this isn't the case for everybody, but a lot of times it does help. It's truly knowing what goes into those payments can help as well. So the more you understand it, the more you can allow yourself to strategize a little bit more too. So first, it comes with that education and understanding of, what am I actually paying here? What is this? What's the breakdown look like? And then once that budget's there, you can say, all right, I'm seeing how much interest is going into this. I'm seeing how much. So how can I limit that, and how can I optimize my budget to really assist with what I'm doing? And that's a long process a lot of times, but so is your financial wellness journey. That's a long process too. So if it takes a long time to get out of something and kind of get things under control, that's a learning process in itself. So if it takes years to get out of, it's something that now you know, and you better understand what this landscape looks like. So moving forward, it gives you that knowledge that other people don't have.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matt. Did anybody else have any questions? I think we're good on this end. We really appreciate the time coming in, especially last minute, to do this for us.
So he
Oh,
said,
no, we had originally planned it and then we shifted direction. So I'm glad you said something, Nicole. And I'll be honest, we have not got any, because we're just moving to a weekly format. We don't have anything lined up for the 24th. But by September, we'll have it rolling with weekly programs, and from a variety of topics. And again, especially if you have a group of people there who have specific interests, let us know, because we'll make sure we address that. But I hope each and every person knows that they can reach out and get some one-on-one financial counseling, because it's free and it's important. And I think you'll feel a lot more in control and empowered just to, read the slide. So thanks for joining us. Does anyone else have any questions? All right. Well, Matt, thank you for being here. We're going to have you back regularly. Maybe not every week. We'll cycle through, but I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. And we will see you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nicole. And you can stop recording.